Yeah. Underrated, we the underdogs, underestimated, yeah.
I'm as ready as I'll ever be.
Perfect.
You good?
Yeah.
What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Totem Podcast. Today we got, like always, we got Eric here with us. Say what's up, Eric.
What's up, guys? How's it going? Just remember to always just like, share the podcast, if we're bringing value to you. If you're learning something here today, if it made you laugh, made you think, if we would really appreciate it if you can just share it with at least one other person and just give us that subscribe.
Cool. Yeah, so today we have a very special guest, and we're very fortunate to have her come with us today. We got the woman empowerment today. So we're very fortunate to have her come in. She's actually one of the best real estate agents probably in Colorado. She has multiple awards and certifications in that space. So Christina, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to come chat with us for a little bit.
Yeah, no, I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
So kind of with that, so you're a real estate agent, stuff like that, but kind of give us a background if you could, kind of who you are, what you do, the people that don't know you, kind of your story.
Sure.
A little bit.
I am a Colorado native. I'm actually a third generation, so my family's been here for many years. I grew up in central Colorado in a small town called Buena Vista. A lot of people use that as a great place to go camping and hanging out in the summer. And I grew up in the ski industry, actually. My mom was a ski school director at a small area outside of Leadville, Colorado called Ski Cooper. And so I skied and raced when I was younger, worked in the rental shop in junior high, and then I taught for her for 10 years and really enjoyed that experience. And then I came down to Denver to go to school, attended Regis University, and got my degree in communication, and decided that, I'm going to go continue to teach, but I decided to do it in a workspace, and went in and taught sales for a major department store and worked for them for about 13 years. Finally got up to the level of doing PR and a lot of marketing for them. And when the market changed in the world of department stores, and they kept getting bought out, and I decided I was done with changing companies every couple of years. So took the opportunity to get into real estate in 2000, and I've been going ever since. So 21 years now.
So that's pretty much what kind of led you to get into the real estate stuff, this real estate part of it, I guess?
Part of it was the fact that I had a lot of sales experience and marketing experience from those positions, but part of it too was my children were young. I had at that point a 4-year-old and a 1-year-old, and I needed some flexibility in my schedule. And so real estate afforded me the ability to be a mom and go to soccer practices and go to basketball games and go to the golf course and do all the things I needed to do to support my kids in their endeavors, but still be able to serve my clients in real estate and be able to have a successful career.
So how has the real estate game kind of changed from back then to now?
Because
if anything.
Yeah, because you're you've been doing it for 20 plus, right?
Yes.
So it's you've seen the goods, the bads, the uglies. You've seen it pretty much all.
Oh, we've had such a dramatic change over the years. When I first got in, homes were selling pretty quickly. I would say within a few days or a week. It was, at that time, lending was less restrictive, and so pretty much anybody could get a loan. We were just selling homes like crazy, and it was we thought it was all good until 2008 hit and realized that a lot of the loans that were done were not handled properly, and people got loans that maybe shouldn't have had loans. And so we went into a very difficult market with a lot of foreclosures, a lot of short sales. So that was a complete switch in what I had to learn about the marketplace and how to deal with that. And then obviously we came out of that. Things were going fairly strong, 2013, 14. Market was starting to pick up. Things were starting to go. And then COVID hit. We kind of shut down for a year. Actually, it was really more about 4 months because we still had homes to sell. We just did everything virtually and still had to serve our clients. And once we came out of COVID, for the past crazy year and a half, we have been selling homes in 4 days, multiple offers, highest and best, over the list price, just It's been wild. So, and now in May, we saw another dramatic change in the market. So it's just one of those things that you just have to learn how to navigate that and how to get through it and how to serve your client.
Yeah, there's something pretty important that I think that you're saying, like the coach stuff. Yes, it was difficult for like a lot of people and stuff, like the whole market stuff. But then, I mean, I did some research and it said you were like the one of the top real estate agents in Colorado in 2020.
I don't know about top in Colorado, but I rank very well in Coldwell Banker.
You got the five star, you know.
Yes, absolutely.
And,
I'm very thankful for that. And that's part of that is done by them interviewing my clients and people who've known me and done business with me, and having to have a certain level of production is also required. And they used to allow a lot more agents to be a part of that, and they've streamlined that and cut it down. So yeah, probably the top 1,800 agents in the state are the ones who can be recognized on that. So I was very blessed to be a part of that.
Yeah, because I think that's very important, kind of like, especially with business, I think it's essential. The market's always going to change one way or another, but I think we have to like learn and be able to adapt, like as business owners, I think.
Absolutely, and a big part of what my job is just counseling people, trying to provide them with excellent advice on what has happened, what can happen, and what we anticipate is going to happen, and just trying to help them identify how to manage those changes and how to go through it. Because it's one thing if you're 3 months ago your neighbor sold their house in 2 days and got $50,000 over the asking price, and now your home is listed on the market, it's been on the market for 3 weeks, and you need to do a price reduction. It hasn't sold yet, or maybe it's only had 3 showings. It's a whole different conversation to have with the client to explain why and how, and that it's like the stock market. Everybody was going gangbusters until January, and all of a sudden things started happening. People are upset that they have lost money in their investment portfolio,
yeah.
But it's not like I can change that. I have no capability of that. It's just making sure that the client understands why and what the long term is. Same thing with real estate. I can't control it. All I can do is educate and advise and counsel the client on how to do what is the best for them at this point in time.
Do you think you've like developed that way of thinking over time? Because like the like how you were saying, like being more of a counselor to people. Because I imagine like when you first started, you didn't really have like the experience to know what people really needed. It's probably more for trying to just sell a house just as quickly as possible, or get people to buy a house as quickly as possible. Because a lot of like realtors now are doing it more of as a side hustle, just to make that quick buck.
Right, and I don't know how much longer they're going to be able to do it as a side hustle, because it's turning back into a full-time job, and it has been a full-time job for me the whole time. But I think that it's key for people to understand that it is the biggest investment they're ever going to make, and I have always felt that my job is to make sure they understand the value of that investment and what it means to them and why they're making the decisions they're making, so that they can make better decisions going forward. So for me, it's all about the customer. I mean, I love the sales. Obviously, it's important to me. It's how I pay my mortgage. But in addition to that and beyond that is the relationship with the customer, and making sure that they are feeling that they have as much information and guidance as they need to make their best decision for what their goals are.
That's again another, I think that's really good, like the stuff you're saying, like you're pretty much like investing in the people, like I guess you could say, because you're like, you want to educate them, you want to like actual, like for benefit for them, not just trying to sell, and then slowly like people just they'll start attracting to you.
Right, and that's my goal. Is I want people to call me in 5 years when they want to sell their house, when they're having a baby and they want a bigger house. Or I want them to call me when their kids graduate from college and they need to have a smaller house. They don't need to have a 7-bedroom house anymore. Or someone's getting divorced, or someone's getting married, or people have a job change and they want to live in another state, or they just want to live in a different part of the city. I want to be that go-to resource for them, to give them the confidence to know that I'm here, I understand the market, that I want to serve and support them. And I become friends with my clients. It's important to me. I still stop by and see them. They want to show me, they finished the basement. They added in a new yard. They changed some flooring, whatever it is. They love when I come by and they want to show me what they've done. They're proud of their homes, and I'm excited to share in their thrill and the fun of what they're doing to make the home even more personalized to them.
And that really just comes across that you actually care about your clients and actually just want to be like a friend to them. To not just for purchases now, but for future, if they you were saying, if they need an upgrade or anything, that really comes across that you're more just genuine, just there to truly help them out.
Yeah, I appreciate that, and a big part of my business is my sphere, my group, my people, I call them. But they're referring their friends and their family to me, and that is the greatest compliment I can get.
That's good. Kind of switching topics a little bit, I want to get your take, because people have different stuff happen to them throughout their life, but my thing's at this point, what drives you? What drives you to keep educating yourself, to keep innovating your business, to stuff like that? Because you've had some stuff in the past, health issues in the past, but what keeps driving you?
I think part of it is I really like what I do. I love the contact with people. I enjoy learning myself. I feel like in this job, I'm in a constant state of learning. I'm still having to continue to educate myself because things continue to change. So it's each new transaction that I'm doing with a client is a new experience. I'm learning something from that I can then build on for the next client. And things happen, happen throughout the transaction, and hopefully I've had enough experience on either how to deal with that or help guide the client through it, or if something new happens, I've got resources and people that I work with and that I know that we try to find a solution for them. So,
do you think that's pretty crucial, again, kind of on the business side, to keep, like you said, you kind of keep learning? Or you take everything a learning experience from everything that you're doing?
Yeah, and I think most people do that. I think that your business, in terms of learning about different people and what they do in their businesses, it's guiding you to find new and interesting people to interview. The same type of thing. I'm looking to find new people to serve, I'm always learning about new neighborhoods and what new home builders are doing, and it's just exciting. It's something that is also it's essential. You have to have a place to live. Shelter is one of the key top bases of what we need to make our lives happy, and so food, water, shelter. There we are. So
exactly.
it's a primary need, and I just feel blessed that I've been able to do this for so long.
Oh, that's great. So kind of going towards into the market stuff, do you know right now what's the average price in Colorado, sale?
Yeah, the average, the median closed price right now for, and this includes all homes, attached, single family, and the luxury level
it's
homes.
Just average.
Yeah, the average for all of them is around 600, a little over 600,000. And when I first got in the business in 2000, the average home price was 232,000. So it has gone up dramatically over that time frame. So I think that we may see a slight adjustment in that going forward. Homes are not going to be getting multiple offers in most situations. It's still occurring in certain pockets. But I think that as we start to, it usually is obviously it's a monthly thing, but then they also look at it averaging. I'm sure we'll start to see a little bit of adjustment with that. With interest rates going up, it's affecting how much buyers can spend on a home, and so I think we're starting to see more things like some price adjustments. Sellers who were really trying to maximize on what maybe their neighbor got 2 months ago are not seeing those types of returns, so they're having to do some price adjustments and some other things. Homes are still selling. We have a nationwide housing shortage. Home values are not going to drop. They're just going to adjust and become more normal, which is a good thing for all of us.
Yeah, the how you said the median pricing, the average. You said it could adjust. It's hard to know, but how much do you think it would adjust? Because it's been up dramatically.
It has been, and I can't say exactly, but the information that I've studied and read about is saying that we could see, maybe a 2 to 4% adjustment. So it's not dramatic, but they're also saying that we're still going to continue to see go back to that annual rate of return that we used to get was 3 to 5%. So this may be a short-term adjustment, but then we'll start to see some recovery on that once buyers get readjusted to the mind frame that maybe instead of buying a home in the 600,000 range, they're going to have to buy it in the 500,000 range, or if they were renting and thinking wanting to buy a single family, maybe they're going to have to buy a condominium or a townhome first to kind of work their way up to single family housing. So there's just going to be some adjustments in the market, but as I said, there's a nationwide shortage. The home builders don't have the supplies, they don't have the workmen, they can't build homes fast enough, and we are not going to see a complete fallout of the housing market because we just don't have enough homes right now for the buyers that are out there.
Do you think kind of like touching what you're saying, like there's not enough, but then since there's people that can't afford the same house, that it could affect it like some way, like there'll be less buyers because like you said, like they can't get approved for say like a $600,000 home, so they want a lesser home, that they could afford. So or maybe they just might not get one at this time because they don't qualify for one.
Could be, but we are seeing a lot of competition at the sub $500,000 range. We're still seeing multiple offers on some of those homes. They're still selling fairly quickly once you get over $500,000. We are seeing, because that's for some people that's that move up, or the increase in the interest rate is really affecting their mortgage. It went up by $200-$300 for some people a month. So those are the homes where we're seeing them on the market longer. So instead of selling in 4 days, I think we're up to an average day on market, more like 2 weeks, which still seems like that's incredible. It used to be that, if we sold a home in 3 months, we were doing good. So 10 days is still a great number, and that may go up a little bit. We may hit 3 weeks by the end of July or the end of August, but those are still good numbers. Homes are still selling. They're just not selling with multiple offers the first weekend. Some of them are even getting limited showings. Maybe they'll only have 10 showings total over that couple of weeks rather than 20 showings in the first weekend, because there's still buyers that need to buy. There's still people moving to Colorado for jobs. There's, things are still happening in people's lives and they want to buy. It's just a matter that they're having to readjust how much they're spending and what their timeline is.
So would you say like kind of like the era we're in right now would be more of like a seller's market or a buyer's market?
I've been told, and everything I've been reading, is that it still is pretty much a seller's market, just because we have such little inventory. Even though we've doubled our inventory this month. We went from 3,000 homes on the market in May to 6,000 by the end of June. A normal kind of buyer and sellers even market is more like 11,000 homes on the market. So we are still very much on the side where sellers are still able to get a good price for their home. Buyers might be able to negotiate a little bit more. Maybe they're not having to give up inspection and giving up some of the things they were having to do before, paying for appraisal gaps, those types of things. But sellers are still getting good prices for their homes, and fairer prices.
How much longer do you think this will like continue for? Like have it be like still a seller's market until it makes that flip, or if it even will make that flip to being a buyer's market?
Yeah, I don't know. The economic forecast that I saw recently said that we are probably 4 or 5 years away from having enough homes across the country for people to be able to buy. We're like 1.4 million homes short. So I think that it's going to continue to be still a strong seller's market, but it's just not as crazy out of control as it has been for the last year and a half. It's just going to be more manageable. We just have to set reasonable expectations, and people can't go back and look at what their neighbor did 3 months ago, because that is gone now. So,
what has been one of the, I guess, main contributing factors to why the market has been like so hot this past like year and a half?
Part of it, I think, was just the fact that there was a lot of people who were excited about seeing what was happening. There was some pent-up demand for the first part. COVID kind of put a halt to that, and when people came out of COVID, we saw a big change where before people were going to smaller homes, people decided we're going to need bigger homes. I need 2 home offices. I need a place for my kids to do homeschooling if this comes up again. So where we were seeing a trend for people into smaller homes, now people were selling their smaller homes and moving into bigger homes to be able to sustain the new work-at-home lifestyle. That was driving part of it. Part of it was just the the job environment, that there's still a lot of open positions, and a lot of people were coming to the state and needed to have housing. And I think a lot of people, when they put their lives on hold for COVID, once it was over, they decided, we need to do what we want to do now. If I want a new home, or if I want to have a different home, or I want a smaller home, they're like, I just need to act now and get it figured out, because they didn't know if the pandemic would cause another shutdown, or, I mean, there's so many uncertainties in that regard, that is what was driving a lot of the marketplace at that time.
A thing too that I think, I mean, that like too, like doing some of my like research, like that drove that stuff, I think probably had to do a lot with like the stimulus COVID relief stuff, because that's when most of the cars were sold. You seen the dealerships, they didn't have anything to sell.
Mm-hmm.
And then the housing stuff, because people had extra money. So I mean, and that went on for like almost a couple months, a year, people getting money.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing too was interest rates were so low. I mean, 2.5%, 3%. People that were living in apartments could buy a home and have a mortgage payment lower than what their apartment rent was. And so people wanted that opportunity to get into home ownership, and it gave them that chance.
What are interest rates like right now?
I know that they were up over 6% about a week and a half ago, and then last week they kind of got down into the high fives. Yesterday they kind of went back up a little bit again. A lot of this is based on what the federal fund rate is. They're saying it's going to go up this month again. They're going to raise it by another 75% basis points. And now most of the mortgage companies have already priced to that. They're already aware of that. And the bond market that mortgages are based on is different than what this federal fund rate is, because that's just the rate that the federal government charges banks to trade money back and forth. But they've kind of anticipated that. There's actually, I was listening to some information yesterday on some research, and they were saying that they were wishing that the federal government actually would do like a full 1% rate at this change, because they want to put a halt to the recessionary fears that are out there. And the bond market would actually respond better, and rates could potentially go down if the federal fund rate had gone up closer to 1. But everyone's saying it's probably going to be the 0.75, so we're going to continue to see these higher rates. And I've been told it could get up to 7% probably by the end of Q3.
Yeah, I've been reading a lot of stuff. I mean, by the end of the year, like, I mean, I guess it all kinds of depends where we get the news and stuff, because there's some people say something, some people say another thing, but they're saying close to 10s, maybe 9-10s. But I just think it's, I mean, we don't know where it'll go, but like kind of going on that, like you were saying, the feds and stuff. Do you think that's like, I don't know if it's too much getting in the weeds, but like that the Fed kind of controls all that stuff instead of like the actual, like the White House and the president?
Yeah, I do know that the federal government manages a lot of that. I don't know like you said, I don't know all of the underlying details, because I'm not a loan specialist or a mortgage specialist. But what I do know is that there's just a lot of uncertainty right now, and that unfortunately, what you hear in the news media is only the worst part of it. They don't tell you that people are still getting into homes, that the market is still strong, that things are still happening. They just want to, obviously it's more exciting to talk about
the worst. It leads.
Yeah, absolutely. What's the worst thing that we can talk about? So it's just going to matter, depends on where we end up with, if we get into a full-fledged recession. We just don't know what's going to happen. But I guess the good news for everyone is that the last recession we had in 2008 was driven by the housing market. This time it's not related to the housing market that way. It's not being driven by it, so the housing market is still going to maintain its own level of strength.
Because right now, I mean, because the inflation, right? It's driven by the inflation stuff, or
Mm-hmm.
What do you think?
I think there's part of that. I think the other thing too is that it causes a higher level of caution among potential home buyers, and sellers may be choosing not to sell at this time because they feel uncertain. A lot of people have lost money in the stock market. They're now worried that home values are not necessarily going down, but they're not going up like they were. So I think that's just a matter of having that opportunity to have that discussion with someone on an individual basis of what their home is worth, what their goals are. It's still a good time to be buying, because real estate is not going to go down. It will go up eventually. It just may not go up as crazy as it has been with 12-15% increases on an annual basis, that's just not sustainable. So most of the realtors I talk to right now, we're pleased to see that things are calming down a little bit and becoming more normal, because it's really nice to be able to go show a buyer 6 or 7 homes and let them have a couple days to decide which one they like, instead of having to walk through a house and decide 2 hours later if they want to offer $50,000 over the list price and have to pay the difference if the appraisal doesn't come in. So it's definitely a more calm feeling for a home buyer at this point.
Yeah, because a lot of stuff, I mean, because I like to read a lot of stuff about like how the market stuff, not just like the housing stuff, but how it gets controlled. So it's kind of like inflation and then like interest rates. So it's like usually inflation's like over here now. It's actually 9.1. I don't know if you.
Yep.
It's the highest it's been like 40 years. So the way to kind of control inflation is kind of with the interest rates. The problem is that inflation isn't going down and it's still up. So that's when it has the whole chaos of like recession stuff, like what's actually going to happen. And it just kind of goes, haywire. Right. I think it's just like you don't know. Nobody knows kind of what can happen because it's not moving how it usually would move.
Absolutely. And inflation's going to go up for the next couple of months because my understanding is that it's a 12-month delay in terms of how they do that.
Yeah.
Right. And so last year, August, September, and October was maybe 0.5%. So once you start removing those and putting in current numbers, you're going to see it go up. It'll probably be 10% by the end of September, if not before then.
Yeah, I think it'll be there easy. I was actually just looking at this chart that I had, because there's like, I don't know how much like the media news you follow, but I guess they came out, like the president was saying, Uncle Joey, that the U.S. isn't even close to like we don't have inflation. We're one of the bottom ones, but in reality we're number 6 in the world for the highest inflation. So I mean it's just crazy. And then within the last from December 2020 to today, it's 9.1. It was 1.4 in 2020. Now it's 9.1. So it's just like
literally
it's real. It's happening.
Yeah, it absolutely is. And people are feeling it in their pocketbook. You know, they're seeing it at the gas station. They're seeing it at the grocery store. And we're not sure. A lot of this is you know, in the grocery store, you're seeing a lot of that is related to pandemic issues too. You know, when the meat packers and all these corporations had to shut down completely due to COVID.
Yeah.
Now they're just trying to get ramped back up again. They don't have enough workers. They're trying to get things going. So they had to increase prices so the consumer is seeing it. And it maybe hasn't even all rolled into the grocery store yet. So people are going to see some increased costs over the next few months until things get ramped back up, supply chains start to open back up, and we start to see some normalization.
Yeah, and I think it kind of goes back to like, it's like the trickle effect. Like you're saying, the meat packing place, they didn't have that because they didn't have workers, because I mean, they're like, I'm getting more money with COVID, like relief if I'm not working, unemployment, than if I actually go work. I mean, at that time it sounds cool, but then like, and now we're seeing the effects of it like now.
Absolutely. That was probably a very much a driving factor of why we're seeing some of the changes we are now.
Yeah, it's have you watched do you watch like documentaries, movie stuff, like on stuff that, because there's a couple movies and documentaries that you see, but I mean it's just driven on other stuff, and I just think it's interesting. Like, of course it's a movie, you know, so there has to be some sort of fiction to it. There's one that I seen, it was the Margin Call. Have you seen that one?
I have not.
Margin Call, that one's really good. It's about like the whole market, how it was not just on the housing market, but it's just like on the stock market itself.
Mm-hmm.
And then which one is it? The Boiler Room. That one's pretty good too. I mean, obviously the Big Short.
The Big Short.
Yeah.
The Wolf of Wall Street, like those. Or I seen a documentary the other day. It was IOU USA. That one's really good.
Yeah,
I thought
there's certainly a lot of information out there for people to try to weed their way through.
Through the stuff.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I was looking up some stuff. That the definition of an actual like recession, I guess, it's when you have two consecutive quarters of like negative GDP growth,
Mm-hmm.
and we've like already seen that in Q1 of this year and Q2 of this year. So technically, we are in a recession. It's just not severe right now. I don't know if it'll get more severe or even be up to the level of like 2008 or that it was.
Mm-hmm.
But technically, like right now, we are in a recession.
Yeah, that's what I've heard, is that it's a mild one, but we are currently in one. And so, yeah, we just have to hope that our leadership can help us figure out how to get out of it.
Yeah, and two, I think, kind of like why the whole purpose, like with you, to have you on, like, if we are in a recession, like stuff, I think people should get the best person to help them out, like you, if they're trying to get a place, like we were saying, I don't even know how many new real estate agents have come out in the last 2 years, maybe.
Yeah, I don't know.
And then they just came. Yeah, so it's like they really don't understand how the whole game actually works, I think, yet.
Yeah, well, and I think they just felt there was an opportunity to jump in and make some money really fast and really easy. And now the realtors who have had that opportunity are going to have to see that there is actually work involved to get a home sold. It doesn't just magically go away, and you need a strong marketing team, you need a marketing plan. You're going to have to actually communicate with your client on a frequent basis, keeping them updated and help them understand what's happening in the market. You've got to become knowledgeable about the market. And so, yeah, it's there's a reason why they don't just, a lot of agents are done with the business in about 5 years, because it's a lot of work and there's no one to hold you accountable except yourself.
Exactly. So I guess kind of going with that, like, what are some tips you would have, say, for buyers? Like if they're trying to buy,
Right. Well,
or I guess like what makes you kind of different from the rest? I mean, what do you recommend?
Yeah. Well, I think first of all, as a buyer, you want to interview and find someone who's going to have your best interests at heart. I always appreciate the opportunity to be interviewed. I don't win everyone. That I understand that, but I think to at least have that conversation with somebody who has maybe been in the business more than 6 months or a year, just to see what they would do different and how they work in a different marketplace. Second, obviously having that pre-approval, having beyond just having someone say, I make this much money, please tell me how much mortgage I would have. The lender needs to see your tax returns and see your paychecks, and maybe even get you almost through underwriting, except for maybe needing a contract and an appraisal, so that there's no surprises. Because what we're finding is a lot of people got pre-approved back in March and April when the interest rates were 3.5%, and now they're writing contracts and they're going back to their lender and they're like, oh, the interest rate's double, my payment went up $250 a month, I can't afford that. Why did they not have that conversation, a couple of days before they went out instead of 3 months ago? I think there's a lot of buyers too who are just afraid that that there's the market's going to fall apart and that their housing is become super cheap. There's going to be a bunch of foreclosures. That's not going to happen. People have so much equity in their homes right now. There are not going to be foreclosures. Sellers can sell and save themselves from having to go into foreclosure. So, like I said, we're going to see an adjustment on some pricing, but we're not going to see a dramatic downturn in the values of real estate.
I was actually reading an article the other day. I mean, I know it's probably not like just specifically Colorado, because you have a lot of people coming in. Mm-hmm. But last year compared to this year, it said the foreclosure rate was like 700%. I mean, it's national, and I mean, every situation is different. If they have like a really beat up home to like a something presentable, like sellable. Mm-hmm. But I just thought it was like interesting, because I mean, I don't just drive around seeing foreclosed homes. I don't think that's really happening. But it's like once you see the article and the numbers, I mean, it's just like gets you.
And that might be a national thing. And there's some areas of the country that did not see the type of increases that we did in Colorado. Colorado is a very highly desirable location for people to be. We're very technologically driven. Mostly, a lot of college educated people, very savvy business people, and the lifestyle. People love being able to be in the mountains and go skiing and go hiking and camping, and there's just a lot about Colorado that draws people here. They want to live here. And but there are certain areas of the country, some of the areas of the South and different places that did not see the kind of value add and increases in home values that Colorado did during this time frame. I think you saw more of it like Texas, and Colorado, Florida. Those are the kind of the markets that saw a dramatic increase. And so, yeah, I'm sure that there are opportunities in places where if people, didn't lock their rate or whatever they're doing, that they could find themselves, if they're having an issue with employment, that could find they're in a situation with a foreclosure. But we are not seeing it in Colorado.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I was just gonna say, I was talking to some realtors, and they said that there was like a possibility of like locking in an interest rate for a few years, and then like switching back to like a market controlled interest rate,
Like a variable?
after that, like a variable thing. I don't know if that's like actually true.
I mean, you're more on the housing side. That's more like on the interest side. But I mean, we're just asking because we don't know.
Right,
Right. You're the professional. That's why
Right.
This is stuff that we hear.
What I know is
read.
that there are some lenders out there that are offering ARMs, adjustable rate mortgages, where you could lock in your rate for 5 to 7 years, and then at that point you'd either refinance or you'd have to pay the higher rate. But I think people that are taking those, it gets them into the home now with a little bit lower rate. But I think it really depends on the lender, what you're doing, and if that really is the right thing for you, because there are some other programs out there that lenders are able to get you in a little bit better. Or I know some buyers, instead of at paying a certain price for a home, they're adding a little bit extra in and having the seller credit them back some funds to purchase a lower interest rate. So there's a variety of different ways that it can be worked through, and obviously a good mortgage lender, and that conversation is really important to have before someone makes the decision to go into the home buying process.
With that whole thing, like you're saying, it could be good for the first. It's like when you get a credit card, 0 interest for the first 6 months, and then month 6 came and you never paid it, so now they're just going to eat you. I mean, it could be good for like.
It could be good to start out,
but then if you don't, it could come back to bite you.
Yeah, just kind of depends on where they're at. So.
Yeah, and then another question, like we were talking the other day, like the VA loans or something like that. Remember?
Yep, VA loans and FHA loans are assumable, which with the correct approvals, if someone is a vet and wants to purchase a home that has a VA loan on it, and they're willing to pay the difference from what the current person owns the home for, or has their loan against it for, and what the sales price is, they could assume. I've got a client right now who has a home listed with a VA loan, and his interest rate is 2.75%. So a vet could come in and finance the full amount of the loan. Let's say, I'm just going to pick a number, maybe it's $500,000, but they'd have to bring an extra $100,000 to pay the difference between what the loan amount is and what the sales price is. So, but it's certainly possible, because VA loans are no money down for the loan, so they would just have to pay the difference between the loan amount and the purchase price. And FHA loans are also assumable.
Yeah, that's crazy. A lot of little stats. I mean, that the average person doesn't, I think, really know.
Yeah.
Until they start, I guess, educating themselves and stuff. And another question I have for you is like, how important do you think it is for people to stay like educated? Like, do you yourself, do you read often? Do you do research often, or like stuff like that?
Oh, I do. We have a weekly meeting in our office with updates from our lender for what we're doing. I'm always communicating with a couple of lenders that I have that are keeping me apprised of what's happening. I get on a Monday call with a national group of realtors to just kind of learn about what's happening on a nationwide basis and what they're doing. So, like any other business, you've got to keep your finger on kind of the pulse of what's happening, because it continues to change, and we just have to navigate it the best we can. And staying educated, I think, is the best way to at least feel that you have some ability to provide guidance, because that's what my goal is I've got to be able to give good information to people, because they're making big life decisions with home purchases and sales.
And that's another thing that just sets you apart from other newbie realtors, that you're actually keeping up to date, educating yourself on new information that comes out. So you're always like providing people with like the best information there is.
I certainly like to hope so. I make an effort to try to keep educated on it. So yeah, that's the goal.
No, I'm sure it makes a difference. Like, maybe it keeps going like in the long run or whatever. Like, because education is like a process, so it keeps going.
Mm-hmm.
Like me, myself, I was telling Eric the other day, I started counting like the amount of books I hated reading when I was in school. Like, I just hated it. I probably read maybe half a book throughout my whole high school. Since middle school to high school, I didn't read at all. And then within probably the last 5 years, I've read over 100 books easy. and I have them, like, I have a whole bookshelves of them. So it's like,
Yeah.
I've gone through a lot, and then it's not even the articles I read online, the podcasts you listen to hours a day, you know. So it's kind of like the long game, I guess you could say, because
and you're just
reading
educating yourself and learning more, and that's the key, I think, is you've got to just keep learning.
Yeah, and then there's the process, I think, where it's like, okay, you learn all this, but then it's like you can read a book, but if you never put it into practice, or if you educate, but you have to start putting it into practice and actually experimenting, I think.
Right.
If not, you get the paralysis by analysis, and you just stay there and you never do anything.
Yeah, that's the hard part, is the action part. It's easy to sit and listen to an audio book or something, but then to put it into practice is definitely difficult, and I think any business person is challenged by that. It's just a matter of having to have that commitment to want to do this stuff that's not fun, you know, the basics that drive your business on a daily basis.
Yeah, for sure. And then also, like, I mean, now going kind of on the personal side for you is like, what are your hobbies? What do you like to do for fun?
You know, I am learning to golf, or I guess I should say I've been learning to golf for a while. I'm not great at it, but I have fun with it. I'm participating in a charity golf tournament next month for a friend of my daughter's, and who was unfortunately killed in an accident in March in New Mexico. He was with a golf team, and they died at that accident, so we're doing a charity golf tournament for him. So I'm really looking forward to that. Just fun to get out with my family and play. My husband and I have hunting dogs. He does a lot of upland game hunting, and so we have 3 Labradors at our house, so they tend to be part of my projects.
Okay, that's cool.
Because I've got these dogs, and they're great. They're fun. And then I enjoy reading, like you. I'm always got a book going, something that I'm looking at. And I like getting up into the mountains, hiking, going around, skiing. Obviously, I'm still very passionate about skiing. So
That's good. So do you go up to like the mountains? Like, do you like more, I guess, like the summertime or like the wintertime, since you like ski and stuff?
both. Since I grew up there, I'm used to the winters. It doesn't bother me. I can shovel snow like anybody else. So
There you go.
yeah, no, I love going up there. But yes, I love going to ski. And but the summer right now, it's beautiful to go up there, and it's the high is 76 instead of the 96 or 106 that we could have down here. So it's nice to get away and enjoy that too.
Okay. That's
So
great.
so what are some of your final thoughts, or some of your final just
advice
for people looking to sell, looking to buy right now? Like, should they be fearful of what the market's going to come? Should they just be cautious, or should they just proceed without worry?
I think my thought is that they need to be educated about what's going on and find out what their goals are. Do they, if they're moving out of a townhome and into a single-family home, do they need to sell the townhome? Do they want to keep it as an investment? What do they need the funds out of that to get into the new one? That's part of that counseling process, is what their long-term goals are. But the advantage of buying a home now is that the home prices are not as crazy out of line as they were. Interest rates are at 6%. So, people are like, that's crazy, that's so high. And I bought my first house in the mid-'80s, and I paid 12.5%, and we thought that was a great rate. So 6% is what it is. The interest rate is what the interest rate is.
They got used to the 2%. That's the
exactly.
problem.
Yeah, they're just everything's looking backwards, and it's like you need to go back further and see that it was a lot higher. So I just think people need to, set their goals. If their goal is to get into a house, let's figure out how to get them into a house, because 2 years from now, the house is going to be worth more than what they paid for it today. Interest rates are going to change again at some point, in maybe a year, maybe 2 years. You can refinance to a lower rate. It's not going to stay in a set situation, but then you've had the opportunity to live in your own home for a couple years. You can change the rate. You can sell that home and buy a different one. But I always encourage people to get into real estate. It's a buy and hold industry, and you're going to always see positive return on your investment value as long as you hold it for a while.
No, that's great.
Yeah,
That's,
and the only other thing I wanted to say, sorry to interrupt,
Go
is
ahead.
that it's important to interview who you're going to work with and who you want to support you in this change and in this goal.
Don't just hire them because they're your friend from high school or something.
Your best friend just got their license last week, and they want you to share all of your personal information and your financial information and help you find the best home for what your goal is. That's not to say that they couldn't do a good job. They may do an excellent job at it, but I think that you should at least take the chance to talk to some people who maybe have a little bit more experience and can help them manage the changes that are currently happening in the marketplace.
Especially if for most people out there, buying a home is going to be their biggest investment they make.
Absolutely. The biggest investment they're going to make now and, in the future, because most likely if they buy one now, then they may sell it and buy another one. You want to have somebody on your side that's going to be here for a while to support that.
Yeah, so, with that said, guys, you guys should interview Christina here. Where could people find you? Like your website, what are you on?
Yep, absolutely. They can find my website. It's ChristinaKern.com. Very straightforward. I'm on Facebook. I'm obviously available by phone. You can find all the information there, but I do have seller tips and buyer tips on my website, information, links to the MLS, so you can search the MLS as much as you want without getting solicited from a bunch of different agents. And it just is a great tool and a great resource for people, and I always try to direct them there. So yeah, check it out at ChristinaKern.com.
Okay, yeah, we'll put the links in there so people can, if you're listening to it, so you can check it out, send her an email, call her.
Absolutely. More than happy to provide information however I can. And I do get that. Sometimes people just call and have a question, and I do my best to try to answer them as soon as possible.
Yeah, and there's like you were saying, there's a ton of more information on your website for more tips for buyers or sellers, and then just in general has a lot of information that people can just learn more about you too.
Yep, absolutely. My whole story's there, so feel free to check it out. Would love for you to read it.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. Yeah. Well, thank you for joining us, Christina. We really had a fun time just getting to know you and just talking about what's going on right now
and learning a lot. Me, like us ourselves, I sat here and I actually learned a lot. From you, and then that's kind of what it's all about. It's kind of like on the selfish level, I guess, but so I could learn too. The audience, but I want to learn too. So and I appreciate your time, appreciate everything. And
thank you for the opportunity. This was great, and I just appreciate you guys giving me a chance to share and to give people a little bit maybe different information that they're hearing from the regular news.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah. And with that being said, we'll just leave you with our quote here: "An act of rebellion is to question."
Okay, thanks, guys. Appreciate it, Christina.
Perfect.
Good. Cut. You did awesome. You did it.
Did I do okay?
You did better than us, and it's your first time.
Yeah.
No.
Underrated, we the underdogs, underestimated.